Charlize Theron, however you pronounce her last name, I never have been quite sure, to be honest. She recently complained that she is, quote, shockingly single at the age of 43. And I guess there were some people who were confused by that. Well, how could this woman, a very attractive woman, Hollywood celebrity, rich, how could she be single? How has she not found a man by now? Well, I think now we know why, because in another interview that was published late last week, she, quote, confirmed that her 7-year-old son is actually a girl. The poor young boy who she now parades around in a dress announced his gender identity at the age of 3, according to Charlize Theron. He announced his gender identity, and this is the quote from Theron. She says, "Yes, I thought she was a boy too, until she looked at me when she was 3 years old and said, 'I am not a boy.'" And that's how, at the age of three, that's how she discovered that her son is really a girl. Now, I have a son who is almost 3, and I have twins who passed that threshold a couple of years ago. I can say from experience that a child at the age of 3 knows nothing about the world. Just knows absolutely nothing. He cannot speak in complex sentences. He thinks cartoons are real. Okay, when a 3-year-old watches TV, he thinks that the cartoons are real creatures who are literally inside the TV talking to him. Okay, that's what he thinks. He doesn't know the difference between truth and fiction. Literally doesn't know the difference. As in, if you were to say to a 3-year-old or even a 4-year-old, unicorns aren't real, well, you're not spoiling anything, because they don't understand what that means. They don't know what not real means. That doesn't mean anything to them, that sentence. So they don't understand the difference between truth and fiction. A 3-year-old believes in Santa and unicorns and monsters under his bed. He thinks that his toys come to life when he leaves the room. He is slightly more intelligent than a goat, basically, and slightly less intelligent than a dolphin. No offense to 3-year-olds. I think 3-year-olds are awesome too, by the way. I think it's a great age. It's one of my favorite, maybe my favorite age for a little kid. But the point is that these are not very intellectually developed or complex beings yet at that stage. These are people who believe literally anything they're told on any subject. When my twins were that age, for instance, and I admit that I like to do this with my kids. I'll just tell them the craziest stories I can think of, and so I told my kids when they were 3, my twins, that I used to live on the moon when I was a kid, and I had a pet flying shark named Rocky, and I flew down here from the moon on my shark. Okay, and I told them that, and they were so thrilled by that biographical detail about my life that I didn't have the heart to admit I was lying. And they might still actually believe it, for all I know. They might be telling their friends that their daddy used to live on the moon riding a flying shark. So what I'm trying to stress here is just that 3-year-old children are very, very young, and they are very, very limited in their ability to understand anything. And one subject that they certainly cannot grasp is biology. So the next time you hear a 3-year-old boy claim to be a girl, which is an extraordinarily common phenomenon, okay? It's a very common for young boys to say stuff like that. It's only recently that the adults have become so stupid and deluded that they hear that and they think, oh my gosh, this is so significant. He just claimed to be a girl. For thousands of years, 3-year-olds would say stuff like that, and the parents would go, okay, honey, all right. Pat them on the head, send them on their way. But if you really are concerned, or if you're confused, well, here's something. The next time you hear a 3-year-old boy claim to be a girl, here's the follow-up question to ask this child. Say, okay, what's a girl? Now, if that statement means anything coming from his mouth, then he should be able to answer that question and tell you what he thinks a girl is. But he won't be able to answer that question because the word girl to him means nothing. It is a sound that people make. When he says, I'm a girl, he may as well be saying, I'm a who's a what's it. Or I'm an apple, or, I'm a couch. I mean, these are just words. They don't mean anything to him. At the absolute most, if this is a child who is very developed in his thinking and is much smarter than your average 3-year-old, then maybe when he says that, what he might mean is that he is interested in the things that his little toddler brain associates with girls, like bright colors, princesses, fairies, dolls, etc. It probably doesn't even mean that, because most 3-year-olds can't draw those associations like that. But at most, that's what it means. At most, you could translate, I'm a girl, to, I think Tinkerbell is cool. And considering he thinks that Tinkerbell is real, I can hardly blame him for thinking that. I mean, I think it'd be cool too if Tinkerbell was real. Of course, this whole conversation is unnecessary in general because our sex is not something that we can reject or change at any age. So it doesn't, 3-year-olds can't decide their gender, neither can 33-year-olds. Nobody can. It's scientifically impossible. But even if I hit my head and I woke up believing that biology really is adjustable and you can change it, I would need to suffer several more traumatic brain injuries before I would get to the point where I would think that toddlers could be entrusted to make those adjustments. Even a person confused enough to believe in the whole concept of transgenderism should still be sane enough to understand that a human being who's only 3 or 4 years old cannot possibly be entrusted with that decision. That's what I want to stress, is the levels of crazy that we're dealing with here. Where you've got the whole idea that you can change your sex. That's crazy enough. And now, but even if I were to accept that premise, which of course I do not even a little bit accept it, but even if I did, I would still, there's no way that I would think that a 3-year-old could do that. There are a lot of actual decisions that we can make with our lives as adults, but that we don't let children make. In fact, 3-year-olds, we don't really let 3-year-olds make any decisions, really. Every decision they make is in a very controlled environment, and we exercise the right to override it. And we do override almost all of their independent decisions. If you've got a 3-year-old, especially a 3-year-old boy, you're sitting there all day. You're trying to stop them from killing themselves. Honestly, I don't know how any 3-year-old boy survives past 3, considering how often you have to step in and avert disaster for them. So, I mean, have you ever been, you go to Cold Stone or one of these ice cream places, and have you ever been stuck in line behind a mother and a child, a young child, where the mother, for whatever reason, is letting the child decide all the what kind of ice cream he wants and what he wants on the ice cream? Well, you're gonna be sitting there for 72 hours because the child cannot make even that decision. If you put 32 flavors in front of a child, say, which flavor do you want? And here are 10 toppings, which toppings? He cannot decide. He really can't. So you have to just make that. Now, experienced parents know, well, I'm not going to give you a choice. At most, I'll give you, ice cream or vanilla. And you've got 10 seconds to decide. But probably I'll just decide for you. And whatever I decide, you'll like. You don't need to decide for yourself. It's ice cream. You'll enjoy it. So kids at that age can't make any decisions. The idea that they could make a decision like this is insane. Now, I call it insane, but there's a question here. Charlize Theron and people like her, are they really that insane? Or are they purposefully instilling gender confusion into their perfectly healthy and normal children, simply to be fashionable? So is this wickedness on the part of the parents or mental illness? And again, I'm talking about the parents. Now, a 3-year-old child is neither wicked nor mentally ill. That's a normal kid. But it seems to me, as a parent, to allow your 3-year-old to choose his gender, you would have to be mentally ill or evil. I don't see any room in between. I don't see a third option here.